Thank you, everybody, for coming to the College Football Betting with Aaron Torres YouTube channel. If you could do me a quick favor, see that little subscribe button at the bottom of the screen. Go ahead, click that subscribe button. It helps our channel grow. It helps our audience grow. I appreciate it more than you know as we're talking college football on this channel year round. Appreciate your support. Click that subscribe button because the other big game in the Big Ten coming into the listen, if this was August, this might have been the headliner of the entire college football slate. Two preseason top 10 teams, one certainly playing that way coming into this game now heading into November. The other one, not so much. I'm, of course, talking about Oregon traveling to Michigan. Oregon, the number one team in the country, very much looks like a national championship contender. Michigan, not so much. Coming into this game, all you need to know, just look at the point spread. Oregon is a 15.5-point favorite. The over-under of this one is 45.5 points. So let's go ahead and dive in and talk about both these teams. With Oregon, listen, I said this on the Aaron Torres pod the other day. I think you could argue. Listen, it's not a game that like they're going to be making 30 for 30s about, okay? But that Oregon win over Illinois, in my opinion, was actually, this was last weekend, obviously in Eugene. It was one of, in my opinion, the most impressive wins of the college football season. Let me explain why. 3 weeks ago, Oregon is at Ohio State. They destroy Ohio State. They fly cross country. They play Purdue on a Friday. They come back. They're playing an Illinois team. It's a 12:30 local time kickoff, okay, right afternoon. Illinois is good, but you also have this game lingering. And so, in my opinion, that was an easy spot to kind of be looking ahead to Michigan. Do you really care about Illinois? But Illinois is a top 25 team. And if you don't come in ready to play, they're going to compete with you and maybe beat you. And so for Oregon to just destroy the Illinois Fighting Illini, I thought that was a very impressive win. 38-9 was the final score. And what was really impressive was just every phase of football, right? They threw the ball well. They ran for 229 yards, about 5 yards per carry. The defense was elite, obviously holding Illinois to 9 points. So from Oregon's perspective, I think that was a very impressive win in what is quickly becoming a very impressive season. Feels like a lifetime ago that we were worried about that Idaho game, the Boise game. As it turns out, Boise's just awesome. So there's that part of it. You beat Ohio State. Now you're rolling into this one. Michigan, as I said, not so much. It's a little tough to kind of gauge Michigan because with respect to Michigan, they're not good. They won the national championship last year, but at the same time, they are 5-3. They are coming off of a nice win against Michigan State. And I do think they actually cleaned up some of the things that have been plaguing them throughout the season. If you look at this Michigan team, one of the things about Michigan a year ago, all the talent, the coaching, Jim Harbaugh, whatever, they just didn't beat themselves. They were the least penalized team in college football, which was kind of crazy considering they played 15 games, the most of anybody in the sport outside of Washington. And then also, they weren't a very penalized team either. And so you didn't turn the ball over. You didn't have penalties. This year, that has not been the case at all. So to Michigan's credit, they do beat Michigan State last week. 0 penalties, which I think was a very important thing, as well as 0 turnovers. The issue is, the offense is just not good, okay? And first of all, we saw Jack Tuttle has officially retired from football because of concussions. Wish him well, kind of as he pursues whatever's the next chapter of his life. But the quarterback position, it's still in flux. Davis Warren was a little bit better last week. They still had under 200 yards passing. It's kind of crazy. Michigan is 130th out of 133 teams in passing, or 134 teams in passing. 2 of the teams behind them, Army and Air Force, obviously don't even try to pass the ball at all. And then statistically, they're like 125th nationally in total offense, which is kind of crazy because if you look at some of the teams behind them, it's the UCLAs of the world, it's the Oklahomas of the world, it's the Florida States of the world. So we watch Florida State, we're like, they're unwatchable. We watch Oklahoma, we're like, they're unwatchable. Michigan is much the same. And even after coming off of the win against Michigan State, it is worth noting, feels like a great win on paper, but it was on the Big Ten Network. I don't think a lot of people outside of Michigan and Michigan State fans watched it. Michigan got outgained by like 100 yards in that game. And so as we start to look ahead, listen, I could beat around the bush. I could make this into a 15-minute segment. I just don't know how Michigan is going to be able to move the football. And so because of it, again, let me say this. I don't love taking road favorites, period. End of story. I don't like betting road favorites. I just think it's so hard to win in college football on the road, any environment, but especially in a really, really tough environment. But I just think Oregon minus 15 and a half is the right side, and that is my pick in this game. When I look at this game, a couple things. One, first of all, Michigan isn't as good defensively. They are pretty good against the run, top 15 nationally, but the pass defense is not good. Will Johnson, their star cornerback, for people who don't know, he's got a lower body injury, has missed some time. Sharon Moore has said that he is not out for the season, but that he's not 100% for this game or not expected. I don't want to say that he's not expected to play. Sharon Moore said he's not sure if he's going to play in this game. So even if he comes back, he won't be 100%. And because of it, Oregon that is their strength, right? Dylan Gabriel is one of the most efficient quarterbacks, quite literally, in the history of college football. I think he's only getting more comfortable as the season goes on. He's played some of his best football of late, 76.2% completion percentage, 18 touchdowns. Last week, threw for 3 touchdowns and an interception. He's playing his best football. The Michigan pass defense isn't very good. And then when you look at when Oregon has when Michigan has the football, how do they move the football? We're now 8 games into the season. This is the 8th game for Michigan. How do they can't throw the football? And if you can't throw the football, Oregon's defense or Oregon's secondary is elite, by the way. The run defense isn't as good, but they can just load up the box and they can just take everything away from you. And so again, I don't know how Michigan moves the ball. Oregon's pass offense is going up against Michigan's weakness in the pass defense. And here's the other thing. Listen, no disrespect intended, but I said I don't like taking road favorites, let alone big road favorites. But it's not like, the big house has been a house of horrors this year for anybody, okay? Week 2, Texas destroys Michigan at Penn State. We obviously destroys Michigan at Michigan. We look at the game a couple weeks later when they hosted USC. Listen, USC is kind of a train wreck right now. USC should have won that game. USC fell down early. They basically gave up like 2 or 3 really big plays. They threw a pick 6 late when they had all the momentum. That was a game that USC easily could have won. And then against Minnesota a few days later, it was a game that Michigan could have lost to Minnesota as well. They won 27-24, but they had 3 points in the second half of that game. So I could go on and on. But I think the theme that I'm trying to get across that I think all of you kind of understand by this point, I don't think Oregon's going to put up like 60 or anything. But at a certain point, if you just keep putting pressure, and your defense is not able, Michigan is not able to move the ball against them, I don't see how it works out well for you. Give me Oregon. I really like it to be in the neighborhood of what the Michigan-Texas game was. If you remember, that was 31-12. This one feels to me like 31-7, 34-7, something like that. A very comfortable Oregon win. They are the number 1 team in the country, and I expect them to roll.